An offensive by Hezbollah's Islamic resistance and in unwavering support of the oppressed people of Lebanon, they were decisively crushed. During this specific operation, the primary command center of the Israeli occupation army, located in the northern part of Saf city, which bears the crucial responsibility for guiding and directing Israeli forces.
Dear viewer, welcome to Dokiza TV. Our topic is the Persian War. How Iran's resilience shattered the myth of American invincibility. So here we are, just weeks into a war that was supposed to be over by now. When Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu launched their attack on Iran on February 28, the plan seemed clear enough: decapitate the leadership, watch the regime crumble, and let the liberated Iranian people sort out the aftermath. The assassination of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, defense ministers, and top IRGC commanders was meant to be the knockout punch. It didn't work out that way. What we are witnessing instead is something the Pentagon didn't factor into its calculations: the nation that refuses to break. And in watching Iran not collapse, the world is seeing three major powers in a completely new light. So, this is what Iran has proven about itself. Let me start with the three things the title of our conversation asked to fill in. This war has demonstrated three fundamental truths about Iran. First, Iran has military capabilities that its adversaries fundamentally underestimated. When the US and Israel struck on February 28, they assumed Iran's retaliation would be symbolic at best, perhaps some missile launches that Patriot batteries would swat away. Instead, within hours, Iran launched Operation True Promise 4 and systematically dismantled the American military footprint across the Gulf. The AN/FPS 132 radar at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, a $1 billion system designed specifically to track ballistic missiles, was destroyed. Al Dhafra in the UAE lost its command centers. The 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain was struck. Kuwait's Ali Al Salam Air Base was rendered completely out of service. This wasn't random firing, it was coordinated, precise, and devastating. Second, Iran possesses a national cohesion that foreign powers consistently fail to grasp. The assumption behind the decapitation strike was that killing Khamenei would create a power vacuum that opposition groups would fill. That hasn't happened. Interim leadership coalesced weakly around figures like Ali Larijani, and the IRGC command structure, far from fracturing, has remained loyal and operational. What's more striking is the popular response. In Kashmir, videos show children breaking their piggy banks, women donating gold earrings, and disabled individuals crawling to collection centers to support Iran. The Iranian embassy in Delhi has been posting these videos with gratitude. This isn't a population waiting to be liberated, it's a population that has rallied behind its government. Third, Iran has transformed its vulnerability, the Strait of Hormuz, into a strategic weapon that gives it disproportionate leverage. About 30% of the world's seaborne oil passes through that narrow channel. By threatening shipping there, Iran hasn't just hit American military assets, it has created a global economic crisis. Oil prices have surged past $100 a barrel. Governments across Europe and Asia are scrambling to secure energy supplies. When the United States asks European allies to send warships to force the strait open, the response has been a flat no, not just from one or two countries, but from Germany, Finland, Sweden, Poland, the Netherlands, and the European Union collectively. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz put it bluntly: NATO is a defense alliance, not an intervention alliance. Portugal's foreign minister dismissed Trump's threats with absolutely no reaction. This war, European leaders are saying, is not ours to fight. Let's briefly talk about the regional superpower question. Here's something that would have sounded absurd 6 months ago: Iran is emerging as the de facto regional superpower, and Israel is being exposed as unable to protect even its own cities. On March 21, missiles from Iran struck Dimona and Arad in southern Israel. About 175 people were wounded. An Israeli F-16 was shot down over central Iran. What's significant here isn't just the damage, it's that Israeli air defense systems failed to intercept a 450-kilogram missile before it hit its target. The Israeli military's own chief of staff ordered an investigation into what they described as failures by air defense systems. For years, the narrative has been that Israel's Iron Dome and aero systems make it impenetrable. That narrative is now in tatters. The Speaker of Iran's parliament put it in stark terms: the failure to intercept missiles shows Israeli airspace has become exposed and unprotected. Meanwhile, the Gulf states that host American bases, Qatar, UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, have found themselves on the receiving end of Iranian missiles. And none of them has mobilized to strike back. Not one. The regional allies that Washington assumed would stand with it have gone quiet. The calculations of what it costs to host American bases are being recalculated in real time. Is American overrated? If this war has revealed Iran's strength, it has exposed America's weakness with equal clarity. Let's start with the obvious: the United States launched this war expecting a quick victory. 3 weeks in, the campaign is still grinding. American bases in the Gulf are smoldering, and the USS Gerald R. Ford, one of 2 carriers deployed, caught fire and had to withdraw. The U.S. Navy's 2-carrier presence in the region, which was supposed to project dominance, instead looks like a liability. But the deeper damage is to America's reputation as a reliable ally. When Trump asked European NATO members to contribute to a naval mission in the Strait of Hormuz, they refused, not diplomatically, not with carefully worded evasions, but with flat, public rejection. The EU's foreign policy chief said Europe has no appetite for expanding its naval mission to the strait. Finnish and Swedish officials said the strait isn't a top priority for them. A Finnish research director questioned whether NATO countries should enter a war the United States and Israel launched illegally. Think about what that means. America's closest allies, countries bound by NATO treaty obligations, are publicly refusing to back a war that the US started. The special relationship with Britain. Trump himself complained that London didn't want to come when first asked for help. The message is unmistakable: the United States can no longer count on its traditional allies to follow its lead. And then there's the question of military competence. Iran has hit American bases across the Gulf, destroyed a $1 billion early warning radar, and crippled the Fifth Fleet's command infrastructure. The Patriot and THAAD batteries that were supposed to protect these installations proved inadequate against the scale and sophistication of Iran's assault. The paper tiger criticism, once reserved for adversaries, is now being applied to America itself. Let's talk about the Palestine narrative and what this war has revealed. For years, the dominant narrative in Western media has painted Iran as a destabilizing force, a sponsor of terrorism, an enemy of peace. Zionists and their allies have worked hard to isolate Iran diplomatically, to make it seem like a pariah state whose influence in the region is illegitimate. This war has dented that narrative, perhaps irreparably. The timing matters. When the US and Israel launched their attack on February 28, negotiations brokered by Oman were still in process. Iran was at the table, willing to talk. The Trump administration chose war over diplomacy. And the justification? The usual one: Iran's nuclear program, its missiles, its threat to Israel. But what's become clear is that the war isn't really about any of those things. It's about reshaping the regional order, weakening Iran so that Israel can assume a greater military and economic role. And here's the part that's shifting global opinion: Iran's position on Palestine suddenly looks a lot more reasonable than the caricature that has been presented. In an op-ed published during the war, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi laid out the case plainly: Israel's campaign in Gaza is a systematic, full-fledged genocide, and the Greater Israel Project, openly discussed by Israeli leaders, represents an existential threat to every country in the region. The world is watching. The images coming out of Gaza, 70,000 dead, 90% of the strip uninhabitable, are being contrasted with Iran's military restraint before the February 28 attack. Iran was at the negotiating table. Iran was willing to discuss limits on its nuclear program. And the response from Washington and Tel Aviv was not diplomacy but bombs. When a country that has been demonized for decades turns out to be the one willing to negotiate, and the countries that claimed to want peace turn out to be the ones launching surprise attacks during active negotiations, something shifts in public perception. The demonization narrative stops working. People start asking, who is actually the aggressor here? A changed world. Let me leave you with this: we are watching the end of something. The post-Cold War order, in which the United States could act with impunity and its allies would follow without question, is over. European countries have drawn a line. Gulf states that host American bases are now targets, and they know it. Israel's air defenses have been penetrated, its cities struck. And Iran, the country that was supposed to collapse in days, is still standing, still fighting, and still commanding the loyalty of its people and sympathy across the Muslim world. What comes next is uncertain. Wars have a way of producing unintended consequences. But one thing seems clear: after this conflict, nobody is going to look at Iran the same way. And nobody is going to look at America or Israel the same way either. The paper tiger has been exposed. The regional superpower has been identified. And the narrative that was supposed to demonize Iran has collapsed under the weight of its own contradictions. Thank you for watching Dokiza TV. Please remember to subscribe to our channel so that in future you get alerts when we post. Goodbye.